Hi, first graders. I'm here to read a story to you for today. Every spring, I like to spend about a week reading a special kind of story to first graders. These kinds of stories are called fairy tales. I like reading fairy tales because there's some really great story elements in these stories that help us with our comprehension. And since comprehension is a pretty important part of learning to read, I like to read these to the kids so that you can start to think about these things. So, in a fairy tale, there are things that show us that there are fiction pieces. For example, a lot of times the characters are animals, and the animals wear clothes and talk. That tells us that these are fiction stories. Also, in a fairy tale, there's usually a bad guy or a villain. So I want you to keep your eyes out for that today, and usually somebody who saves the day or our hero. There's also usually a problem. Something is going on in the story that needs to be fixed, and then that's the problem. And then how do they solve that problem? What's the solution to this problem in the story? So I want you to be looking for those today in our story. Another interesting thing about fairy tales is it often begins with once upon a time or something kind of like that, and it usually ends with and they all lived happily ever after or something kind of like that. So look and see if those happen in our story this time. I'm going to read a fairy tale to you today and again for the next couple of weeks so that hopefully you can start to see some of those story elements in the patterns in these fairy tales. So the very first one I'm going to read to you today is called Billy Goat's Gruff. This is a really big book and it's heavy, so bear with me as I have to shift it sometimes because my arms get so tired. But this is called Billy Goat's Gruff. Once upon a time, a long time ago, there were 3 billy goats who lived together in a rocky field on one side of the valley. There was a baby billy goat called Little Billy Goat Gruff, his big sister called Middle Billy Goat Gruff, and their big brother whose name was Big Billy Goat Gruff. The 3 billy goats Gruff had eaten all the grass on the hill where they lived, and they were still hungry. "I'm starving," said Big Billy Goat Gruff in his big deep voice. "Me too," said Middle Billy Goat Gruff in a middling voice. "And me," squeaked Little Billy Goat Gruff in a very high voice. Now, on the opposite side of the valley, the grass grew thick and green and juicy. In between the 2 valleys was a river with a rickety old bridge over it. How the 3 billy goats Gruff longed to trit trot across that rickety old bridge to feast on the lovely long grass on the other side. "The grass on the other side looks so delicious," said Big Billy Goat Gruff, licking his great big jaws. "I agree," said Middle Billy Goat Gruff, licking her middling jaws. "Yummy," was all that Little Billy Goat Gruff could manage to say as he licked his tiny little jaws and felt a tiny little rumbling in his tummy. But it was not so simple to get to that sweet grass on the other side. The river was too deep and too dangerous for the 3 billy goats Gruff to swim across. Neither could they cross the rickety old bridge because beneath that bridge lived a big, ugly, and fierce troll who loved to eat billy goats best of all. "How I'd love to have a big billy goat for dinner," the troll cried, rubbing his big, ugly tummy. One day, the billy goats Gruff were so hungry they could stand it no longer. "We must make a plan to fool that troll," said Big Billy Goat Gruff. The 3 goats went away to different parts of the field to think until they each came up with a plan. Then they put their heads together, but not too close in case their horns locked, and they discussed each plan in turn. Big Billy Goat Gruff told his plan first, but the other two slowly shook their heads. Then Middle Billy Goat Gruff told her plan, but the other two slowly shook their heads. Finally, Little Billy Goat Gruff told his plan, and the other two nodded in agreement. It was a very good plan indeed. The next morning, the big ugly troll, was lurking under the rickety old bridge as usual. He was keeping a sharp watch in case a nice, juicy billy goat should venture onto the bridge. As time went by, the troll began to feel rather sleepy. It was nearly lunchtime, and the troll had dozed off under the bridge, when all of a sudden he heard the trit-trot of tiny hooves on the bridge. "Who dares cross my bridge with their trit-trot hooves?" growled the big, ugly troll in the deepest, fiercest voice he could manage. It was Little Billy Goat Gruff, and he began to tremble with fright. "Excuse me, sir," he said. "It is only I, Little Billy Goat Gruff. Please don't eat me. I'm hardly a mouthful for you. I'm all skin and bones. My sister, who will be coming soon, is bigger and plumper and much tastier. She'll be much better for you to eat." The big ugly troll scratched his big ugly head and thought hard about what Little Billy Goat Gruff had said. Fortunately, the troll was not very intelligent, so he agreed with the Little Billy Goat Gruff. "Very well," he mumbled. "Go ahead, and I will wait for your sister. She will make a much finer dinner for me." And so Little Billy Goat Gruff went trit-trot across the rickety old bridge and off into the field of juicy grass, where he was soon munching away happily. The troll settled down again underneath the rickety old bridge. It was nearly dinner time, and the troll was getting rather hungry, but he finally dozed off. All of a sudden, he was woken again by the trit-trot of a set of bigger hooves than before, tramping across the bridge. He leapt up onto the top of the bridge, ready to gobble up whoever might be trying to get past him. "Who dares cross my bridge? I will eat them up, every last little bit," he cried in an even deeper, fiercer voice than last time. Standing right in the middle of the bridge, as bold as anything, was the Middle Billy Goat Gruff. She pretended to think that the troll was joking. "Oh, don't be silly," she giggled. "I am far too slim to make a meal for you, but my brother, Big Billy Goat Gruff, is coming soon, and he is just the right size to make a perfect meal for a big, handsome troll like you." The big ugly troll scratched his big ugly head and thought hard about what the Middle Billy Goat Gruff had said. In the end, he decided it made good sense. "Oh, all right then," moaned the troll as he rubbed his empty tummy. "I suppose I can last a little longer than before. I simply starve to death. I will wait for your brother, who will make a much finer dinner for me." So the Middle Billy Goat Gruff went trit-trot across the rickety old bridge to join the Little Billy Goat Gruff in the lovely green field on the far side of the valley. The troll settled down again under the rickety old bridge. It was nearly sunset, and he was getting very hungry indeed. But he finally dozed off. All of a sudden, he was disturbed by the deafening trit-trot sound of heavy hooves on his bridge. "Now I have you," cried the greedy troll in the deepest and most fiercest voice he had ever used. Then he jumped out to find the big Billy Goat Gruff standing, large as life, in the middle of the bridge. "What a fine dinner you've made for me," cried the troll. But the big billy goat Gruff was not the least bit scared. I'm not ready to be a dinner for you or anyone else, he bellowed in his deep, gruff voice. Then the troll saw how very big the big billy goat Gruff was and how sharp his horns looked. Now it was the troll's turn to be truly scared. In fact, he was terrified. His teeth chattered, his hair stood on end as the big billy goat Gruff stared at him with his yellow eyes and slowly licked his jaws. Please go across the bridge, won't you? Stammered the troll. But the big billy goat Gruff didn't seem to hear the troll. He continued to stare straight at him. Then he put down his head and charged at the troll. Faster and faster, he thundered across the rickety old bridge toward the troll. He hit the troll with a huge thump and knocked him right off the bridge. Down, down, down went the troll and landed with a gigantic splash in the fast-flowing river. Then the big billy goat Gruff sauntered across the bridge, whistling as he went. Soon he was munching the sweet grass on the other side of the valley, alongside his younger brother and sister. Now, the three billy goats Gruff went trot-trotting over that rickety old bridge every day to get to the grassy field on the other side of the valley. Funny enough, with all that sweet grass inside their tummies, they each have become so fat that any one of them would make a fine meal for that troll, if only a troll was clever enough to catch them. Life is sweet, said Big Billy Goat Gruff in his big voice. I agree, said Middle Billy Goat Gruff in her medium voice. Was all that Little Billy Goat Gruff could say in his very high voice, because his mouth was stuffed full of sweet grass. And as for the troll, he was a very sorry sight indeed, as he pulled himself out of the river all covered in creepy crawlies. He's never been seen since. But people say that he has declared that he would never lurk beside a river in search of his dinner ever again. And the troll lived in the river, and the billy goat's Gruff lived happily ever after. All right, so what I want you guys to think about was what was the problem in this story and how did they solve that problem? Was there a villain or a bad guy? Was there a hero? Did it start with happily or once upon a time and end with happily ever after? Think about those things, and I'll read another fairy tale to you next time. You guys have a great day.